Bill Gates and Andrew Cuomo combined forces to, quote, re-envision education, unquote, in the wake of COVID-19. So the college dropout educrat who gave us Common Core and the governor with the most coronavirus fatalities of any city in America team up to reform education? Not only will student achievement plummet, but your kids will need ventilators just to survive recess. I'm Dr. Duke, she's Katie, and can you believe that nonsense? This is the Dr. Duke Show. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Dr. Duke Show, the only program you're ever going to find that keeps you educated on the craziness impacting K-12 classrooms and college campuses around the world. Today, we're talking about the ultimate facepalm, ouch, as New York Governor Andrew Cuomo announces he's going to team up with Bill friggin' Gates to reimagine education in a post-coronavirus world. I can't imagine putting anybody more stupid in charge of these things. Literally, you've got a governor who has got a high achievement, high polling rating in New York City for having the most virus deaths of any city in the whole world, on the one hand. And on the other hand, you've got the intellectual architect of Common Core, right, who destroyed American public school education. They're going to get together and apparently imagine there's no problem. It's easy if you try. When Bill and Andy get together to fly. Imagine all the schools lapsing into ignorance. Wow.
It isn't hard to do.
You may say that I'm a screamer.
You are that.
Now you know the reason why.
You're not the only one. I think if they want to go full Captain Planet, they need a couple more bodies to make up the full Captain Planet team. But I think Bill de Blasio, obviously, for good reason, would be in there too.
How about David Coleman?
I mean, if you want to go with the architects, that's David Coleman for sure.
That. But de Blasio would be great. He could be on the team.
Why not? Just New York powerhouse. Well, basically, Andrew Cuomo, his actual tweet, when he says he's going to partner with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. It's not just Bill, but, Melinda's in there too. But he says, as we prepare to reopen, we have the opportunity to reimagine and build back our education system better. I just like his use of the words. And build back our education system better. We will work with the Gates Foundation and develop a blueprint to do this.
This is what they said 10 and 11 years ago about what Common Core. We're going to work with the best and brightest innovators. No more basing school on what educators think. No more of this traditional learning that gave us some of the great figures in human history. We're going to reimagine education with Common Core. Put a bunch of educrats in charge who have politicized education. Do you really think, and you mentioned Melinda Gates? Let's talk about Melinda Gates. The same Dr. Melinda Gates who came out last week and said that Donald Trump gets a D- on his handling on the virus. Thank you. Thank you, Doc. Where did you get your degree from? Where'd you get your medical bona fides? Oh, you married the rich guy. The Michelle Obama of the Gates Foundation, apparently. Maybe Netflix can do a fawning video profile of her as well.
What would hers be called instead of becoming?
No credentials, but we love her anyway.
Well, that's just a tagline.
The terminally unqualified, whose every word we hang on. How about that? Problem is, Melinda doesn't look good in the latest Gucci gown the way apparently Michelle does, because she's been on every magazine cover in the history of magazines.
That's true. But let's just remind people, for those who haven't been tuning in for all these years now, about Common Core state standards. And remember when they were implemented 10, 11 years ago now, it was going to be rigorous. Maybe that's what the documentary could be called, rigorous. But these rigorous state standards, when it was going to make it so that our children were going to read better, they're going to read real good, they're going to do math better. And we just found out last week in the newest release of data by the Pioneer Institute about how the historic basic drop in all reading scores and in math scores since going pre-Common Core.
Literally, what is it about progressives in the Democrat Party where the more damage you do, the more destructive you are, the more you take on things that you have no expertise in and then ruin them completely? How is it in the Democrat Party and progressive circles that actually is cause for promotion? Only in Democrat circles can you be as huge and overwhelming a failure as Bill Gates was with his attempt to mess around with education, and how Cuomo was, and it's a resume enhancer if you're a progressive. Hey, I presided over the city in the world with the most deaths. That qualifies to make me the education czar, and Bill Gates gets to be the country superintendent.
Well, and that's why if you have de Blasio right there for the city, and then you have Cuomo doing the whole state.
Of course, de Blasio would be in charge of multicultural education.
There you go.
Yes,
and
because,
then
he married a black woman.
Oh, he did.
That qualifies him. He gets,
and she was a lesbian.
He does right, exactly.
Was she bisexual then?
I mean, if you are a black female lesbian, name one man you'd marry and never have to sleep with. It would be
Bill de Blasio.
There you go.
So you have Bill de Blasio on the fronts there in New York City, and then you're going to have Cuomo overseeing that, and then you have
Bill Gates overseeing
that, and he actually oversees the whole world too. So,
and by the way, Mindy, because I don't want to exclude you, Mindy Gates, shouldn't you be out in Africa murdering black and brown skinned babies with your eugenics program? Leave failed education to your husband. You get back to murdering third world minority kids. How about that?
There it is. Then you just solved my problem. So we have Bill, and then we're going to go to Andrew for the whole state, and then Bill Gates will be the nation, and then Melinda will be the world. You just solved my whole problem.
Mindy
Thank you.
Gates, she can be the nurse, the student nurse for this education system. And whenever a child, particularly a minority child, comes to her, her response is to euthanize them. How about that?
That probably...
we'll call it post-birth abortion, and the liberals will get behind it immediately.
We have to have that fun name.
Yeah,
you have to have that tagline, because we're reimagining everything.
Post-birth abortion with Mindy Gates as our school nurse for the international school, the one world government school that Bill Gates and Andrew Cuomo are fantasizing about in their dampest of dreams.
All right, moving on to our teachers' unions, who are just literally screaming bloody murder. Well, President Trump announced 2 weeks ago that states should seriously consider opening up public schools before the end of the academic year. Okay. Well, predictably, this triggered all the teachers' unions, and the biggest ones at that. Randi Weingarten, who's the president of the American Federation of Teachers, AFT, told her members that you scream bloody murder if schools reopen without the approval of medical experts, and you do everything you can to use your public megaphones.
So if you listen to the medical experts, who have pretty much been wrong about everything, right? We've even got them saying now it might be 2 years before we open schools. We may never be able to open schools before. Maybe when the fall gets here, school will never be the same. Listen, by all means, leave it to teachers' unions, right? And I guarantee you, these same teachers' unions, let's follow what some of the experts say and have no public schooling for 2 years. Do you think they would be then using their megaphones to scream bloody murder that you're not getting paid your teachers? I think they would be.
I just want to know which medical experts, because
the ones that follow what the schools want to do anyway.
Those ones. Okay. Well, Ms. Weingarten wasn't done. She tweeted, #COVID-19 is a terrible virus that has already taken too many lives. Agreed. And in the absence of a vaccine, there is no magic wand or magic elixir, as the president would have us believe.
You know, this is one of those slanderous lies, like the fact that back in Charlotte, 4 years ago, Donald Trump actually said that there's good people on both. He never said that. And he never said what you're saying. You as somebody who leads, she's a perfect person to lead a school board, because she can't read, she evidently can't listen carefully, that what the president actually was doing is correct. We have to balance what's going on with the virus with what's going to kill tens, if not hundreds of thousands more, if we don't get the economy back, right? And by the way, are these the same experts, people like Andrew Cuomo, who put all the old people who were sick in nursing homes and let all the old people die? Are these the experts you want to listen to, Randy with an I? Randy with an I.
Lily
with a Y?
With a Y. Is that okay?
We're cool.
No, you're not going to be. Lily Eskelsen Garcia, who's the president of the National Education Association, the NEA, tweeted, "There is not a single educator on the White House task force focused on reopening the American economy. This means that 51 million public school students do not have an advocate and the White House for what they need to be safe at school as school buildings reopen. Bringing thousands of children together in school buildings without proper testing, tracing, and social isolation is dangerous and could cost lives.
What blows me away is the same liberal idiots who think that, oh my God, there's not a teacher with a 4-year degree in elementary school math. There's not a person with a degree in elementary math, 4-year degree in elementary math, who's on the president's. That's really what's going to stop you? Yeah. The same people who believe that Bill Gates and Andrew Cuomo, both who have no education credentials, are fine in creating, refurbishing American education. Or the fact that the vast majority of people who were involved with creating Common Core had no educational bona fides. That's perfectly fine.
Well, Lily continued and basically said exactly what Randy with an I said, that we are listening to the health experts and educators on how and when to reopen schools, not the whims of Donald Trump, who boasts about trusting his gut to guide him during this unprecedented global health crisis.
Lily, I defy you with an I, if that makes you feel better. I defy you to name one educator you're listening to about when the schools should reopen. Name one.
One health.
We'll wait.
Okay. Well, Garcia said during the pandemic, teachers and education support professionals have been working harder than ever. However, as we know, according to even Education Week said that teachers have had much more flexible arrangements during this coronavirus.
Translation. We teachers are getting paid just as much as ever. That's the real, not we're working harder than ever. Our teachers are getting paid just as much as usual. Notice how American public school teachers don't have to take cuts in pay, don't have to have their salaries moderated, but that's a whole nother discussion.
That is a whole nother discussion. We're going to have to see what becomes here, because Lily and Randy are not going to get off Twitter, because as presidents of teachers unions, their job is to basically use their megaphones, and I'm sure they're going to say quite a few things coming up in the very near future here, as Donald Trump says anything. Even though, again, just to reiterate, Donald Trump said, seriously consider. He did not say, whip open the doors, everybody, come on in.
I repeat again that if actual competency was the requirement to be an educator, we would be the most brilliant country in the history of the world. Obviously, competence and degrees in education have parted ways a long time ago, probably when we started giving girls names with I's at the end.
On to our next story. We're going to Ohio, or Ohio for all you non-fun people. Well, Ohio students may have basically a whole new look to their school year starting in the fall. And Ohio students basically are saying that they may go to campus, but only 2 days per week. So 3 days a week, you're at home doing your thing in your pajamas. 2 days a week, it sounds like maybe you're going to have to actually go into the school building. Now, Governor Mike DeWine has this idea, and he says, I think everyone would like to see schools back in session in August. And this was in a news briefing. He provided the statement. He said, how could they exist in the world where the coronavirus is still here? How could they get the social distancing? It's very difficult.
Yeah, and I think this is the worst possible solution. All right, the problem is when they're on campus, they can catch the disease, right? Yeah. And so 2 days a week or 3 days a week, 2 days a week, they're going to come, right? So what's going to happen? Because you go 2 days a week instead of 5, it's still 2 days you're going to get exposed to it. And given the duration of this, apparently weeks at a time, it's active, right? What does that fix? Either then let them come, because what you've already said is we're going to expose them to the virus. We're going to expose them, right? 2 days a week. And again, like I said, this is not a disease that dies in a virus that dies in 24 hours. So you're exposing them. And if you're going to expose them, do it 5 days a week. Or if you were that cowardly and think that everything has to change because we've had one global world. I mean, we're really lucky. Not since, really, the Spanish flu, 1919, have you had anything like this in the world. Which tells you it's like this is a once in 100-year occurrence that you now have decided is a new normal because you don't know any other way. Let's just get over this and move forward. The odds are extremely well, especially with all of our scientific minds at work. This won't be a problem again in a large scale for another 100 years.
And really what's happening in Ohio is happening hopefully in every state and every county and every school district where they are looking specifically at their situation. Because the thing is, like we talk about, what's happening in New York City is not what is happening in rural Nebraska, rural North Dakota. It's every situation is unique. And I guess, if we'd actually go back to having education controlled at the local level, this would be much less of of an issue because they would actually know what to do with all their students.
All I know is that educrats, the people who've already destroyed education in the name of ideology, most of them progressives, that are salivating over this. This is the best thing that could have happened to them. And I'm not even talking about education, right? I mean, look at what they're saying about environmentalism. Look at what they're saying about globalism, right? Now you've got something. Since the election of Donald Trump in 2016, big globalist educrats and technocrats have been on the run. They've been dispersed and scattered. They've been really dealt the, God knows the Bush family didn't deal them in. They went along with them, right? The fact that George Bush dislikes Donald Trump is because George Bush was a globalist at heart. Bottom line is that the first serious defeat in my lifetime since the days of Reagan for globalism, and Reagan didn't do that great of a job either, is what Trump has been trying to do. And now this virus gives them everything they want, right? On the basis of this virus, which, again, I saw a statistic yesterday, it's well over 50% of the deaths from COVID are nursing home deaths. Not to demean or lower the value of our seniors like Governor Cuomo did by packing the sick nursing homes with other sick people. That's a quote. That's on you, Andrew. Not to demean our seniors, but particularly with kids who seem shockingly resilient to this in many ways. Just stop with the no more normal. Stop with the everything has to change, because everything you want to change points to globalism. You're using this virus as a way of getting what you want, of a way of transforming culture in the name of your larger progressive ideals. And it's got to stop. It's pathetic. You accuse Trump of doing that, but what does Trump gain? What you gain is everything you want, and it's shameful.
Well, and what we're seeing, I've been kind of, listening to all the various pundits and everyone talk about everything, is obviously the globalists want to just talk about, this new normal we're going to have and we're going to do this and all this. But look at the people who are actually putting their head down and trying to find a solution. Those are the people we should be actually listening to. Whether or not they find that solution right away, at least they're actually trying to do something and not just pontificate about how, we're going to have this new normal. Well, try and actually solve the problem.
Yep, the hardest working people in the world and in America are the frontline responders who are utterly apolitical. It's you politicians that are using their hard work and their sweat and their danger to try to reconfigure the world in your own stupid images.
All right, time for some real education. And today, we're going to talk about Saint Catherine of Alexandria, who is of noble origin and became a Christian after having a vision. At the age of 18, she confronted the Roman Emperor Maximus, debated his pagan philosophers, and succeeded in converting many of them to Christianity. Imprisoned by the emperor, she converted his empress and the leader of his armies. Now, Maximus then, of course, had her beheaded. And she's the patron saint of libraries and librarians, as well as teachers, archivists, and all those associated with wisdom and teaching, plus all those whose livelihoods depended upon wheels.
And your mother is a librarian,
just
right?
Recently retired.
So you need to get her a scapular of St. Catherine of
have
Alexandria. Although she's retired now, I guess. I don't know who the patron saint of retired people is. I don't know. However, this is a beautiful painting, and this is Caravaggio. Caravaggio, if you go back to the first clip, you can kind of see him there. That's the only drawing of him we have. Caravaggio is your typical Baroque Renaissance artist who was half out of his mind. We think that maybe, a lot of these painters used lead paint, and they would put the brushes in their mouths, right? And so a lot of them had symptoms of lead poisoning, and it made Caravaggio incredibly up and down, what we would call today bipolar. But as we know, many people who suffer from things like bipolar disorder are incredibly artistic people. So it was with Caravaggio. And you go to the picture here, and she's absolutely beautiful. I have a picture of this in my office. There she is, St. Catherine, and she's looking out at us, and she's got the halo. That wheel you see with the spikes on it, that was the way that the emperor was going to first kill her. They were going to force her body onto the wheel, onto the spokes. But the story goes is that when the moment her body touched the wheel, it shattered, and you can see that the wheel is broken. And so the next way they were going to kill her was to cut her head off. And you can see that Catherine holds in her hand, really beautifully, a long, slim sword as an emblem of what was going to take her head, and that she's got it. It's a profound statement of this great saint that it's not death that she fears, right? That death that her God, her Christ, matters more than death. And you look at the absolutely voluptuous way he has painted her. She's absolutely gorgeous. She's that confident look in her eye, the way she's seated on there with both implements of torment and death that she was going to have to contend with. This is St. Catherine of Alexandria. You mentioned how when she was arrested, she managed to convert in her very subtle, eloquent defending of Christ and Christianity. She managed to convert the emperor's own wife and the commander of his armies, the story tells us. So you go back to that picture one more time and you can see her. But it's a mark of the dysfunction of Caravaggio. People are going to get angry about this. But he was one of the first artists that really insisted on painting. He didn't do any drawings. Most great artists drew, right, and then painted in. He did none of that. He just sat down and painted. And so he was very reliant, Caravaggio, much more than other artists, on live models. Now, he didn't have a lot of money, and so his models came from the gutter. They were poor people who needed a couple of dollars. And that woman that you see there, her name was Felice Melandroni. She was one of the most famous prostitutes in all of Rome that day. That year, during the life of Caravaggio. She was one of the most famous courtesans in all of Rome. She was a prostitute. And so he used her, Caravaggio, in a number of paintings. Felice Melandroni is her name. And so she, besides being St. Catherine of Alexandria, she was also in the Old Testament, Judith, right? In a great picture of Judith and Holofernes that Caravaggio painted. It's such as the vagaries of the world. Last point, 20 years ago or so, historians convinced the Catholic Church that she never really existed. They removed her from the roll call of the saints, and then for some reason they decided she does exist, and now she's back to being St. Catherine of Alexandria.
And that's your Tuesday. As always, you can follow us on Facebook and Twitter. And if you have a question for our Friday Q&A, visit freedomproject.com/askduke or send us a message on social media. So today's fun fact of the day. I look forward to your comment on this one. Bill Gates said in 2013 that his top bucket list item is to not die.
When you're a secular, materialistic, non-believer, you better be afraid of death because it just means silence in the grave. So at least he's smart about that. Way to go, Bill. Live your secular, materialist, damning worldview. How is that for a happy ending? For Freedom Project, I'm Dr. Duke. She's Katie. Until next time, stay educated, my friends, and stay away from Microsoft.